As we get started this morning, I know there's always a difficulty or this unspoken tension. So what I want to do before we get into our Memorial Day time is I want to do this. Everyone has a moment or a time throughout the year that we honor everyone who ever has or still wears the uniform. But this morning, and I know it's a small group, if you are retired from any portion of the armed forces, would you stand for a moment? We would just like, if you have previously served and worn the uniform, Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, we just want to say thank you. We want to acknowledge you and tell you how much we appreciate you. And we know that there is a Veterans Day to come, and we'll honor and do this again for you, but I think it's important we remember everyone every chance we get. So thank you very much for your service. We appreciate you. And you may be seated. And I know that in this room, on any given Sunday, there is one and more that are still wearing the uniform. So would you stand this morning? I know we have Micah and Micah. If you didn't meet Micah this morning, he's visiting, and Micah. So two branches of the armed forces and two Micahs. Thank you very much for your service as you continue to put us first. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. And if there's any others I'm missing this morning who are active duty, I love honoring the men and women. But there is something special at this time of year when we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. I want to share some things with you this morning, and I don't want to just make this a time of, because it's important that we honor, remember those of our armed forces who served and never came home, and those who served and came home but have since passed, because once a soldier, always a soldier. So it's important that we remember all of those. But at the same time, if I'm just being honest with you and completely transparent, it's Sunday morning church, so I got to, the Sunday school answer is you always got to bring Jesus into it, right? You can't leave him out. And so I'm going to do my best to share with you this morning how we can honor both those who have gone before and paid the ultimate sacrifice, and yet at the same time be reminded of the one who paid the ultimate sacrifice this morning. I've already told you that I lost my glasses, but I have to tell you a little story. It's a little easier for me to read this morning. I have something I want to share with you that my Uncle Pete put together, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, Uncle Pete, but that is some huge print. When I printed it off my computer this morning, I was like, oh, miracles. Thank you, Lord, for that. I read it on my computer, and then when I printed it, I thought, this is going to be hard. Awesome. I'm reading out of a Bible this morning that I don't read out very often. When Mandy and I met, we both lived in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania at the time. She was a college student. I was a youth pastor in town. And where I lived in my apartment complex, there was a nursing home right between my apartment building and the church where I was the youth pastor at. And on a day like today, I could walk, and I often did. In the summers, I would walk to church. Now, it was the snow belt of Pennsylvania, so in the winter, it might have been 27 degrees above and not below, but there was 3.5 feet of snow. So I didn't walk. I just drove that eighth of a mile around the block. But we had a gentleman at the church that lived in the nursing home. His name was Lenny. He was in a wheelchair, and I believe he had cerebral palsy. Polio. I knew I would get it wrong. Doggone it, he had polio. And so he was confined to the chair, and it was very hard and difficult for him to communicate and such. But we found out because the nursing home called and said, we have a gentleman named Lenny who wants to go to church, and you're the closest church. Well, yeah, we can see you from across the street. And they want to know if we could take him to church. Well, it was really nice out. I would swing by, and I would pick up Lenny, get him in his wheelchair, and push him down the road, and we would walk to church together. And I got to build this really amazing relationship with Lenny. And throughout the years, I may have and probably will again tell stories about Lenny. But Lenny wanted a Bible. I don't know if he could read or not, but he wanted a Bible, and so I went and bought him a Bible, and I bought him a giant print edition Bible. And then I would go to his room during the weeks, in between church Sunday and Sunday, I would go and stop by occasionally, and I would pull out his Bible, and I would read to him out of the Psalms and such. Lenny was with us until he passed, and when he passed, I didn't ask for it, but the church presented his Bible back to me. And at the time, I remember thinking, I'm like 29, 30, 31 years old. What do I need with a giant print Bible? Well, this morning, I went to my office and pulled off the shelf Lenny's Bible because I was trying to read my Bibles at home, and it was like, my arms aren't long enough. So thank you, Lenny, for the Bible this morning. I so appreciate it. I'm going to be in a few different passages this morning. There's no PowerPoint for you to follow along, but I'll do my best to give you some heads up as to where I will be. We're going to begin, as the video just kind of shared with us, in John chapter 15. And then we will be in Romans chapter 13. And then we will be in Matthew chapter 28. Those are the three places. If you like to mark them or just kind of want to take some notes and catch up with them later, this is where we will be this morning. John chapter 15. Verse 13, it's a familiar passage of Scripture. We have preached out of it. We read it. It's in so many of our devotionals, and it's very simple. Greater love has no one than this, but that he lay down his life for his friends. Now, this is in the passage of Scripture in John chapter 15. It's entitled The Vine and the Branches, and Jesus talks about being engrafted into Him, and those who want to grow and those who want to be fruitful, we stay connected to Jesus. But He does more in this chapter, and I don't want to spend too much time on it here this morning because it's not the real focus, but He changes the relationship just a little bit. He introduces this idea that Jesus says, "You are my friends." Like, I am going to lay down my life for you, not because I just call you servant any longer, but you are my friend. The relationship has changed. You are important to me. You matter. There is something about this, like, I would give everything. And we may not be able to say that we were friends to all who wore the uniform and didn't come home. But putting on that uniform is a way, and I've never wore the uniform. I'll share with you a story this morning I carry with me today, and I brought it with me, but I have at home a couple of coins that matter very deeply to me, and I'll explain those to you later. But I've never worn the uniform, but I know this in conversations with family and those who have. Every single one of them, when they put the uniform on, you can't convince me otherwise. They are saying to you and I, the relationship has changed. You're no longer just someone that I went to high school with. You're no longer just someone that I have worked alongside of. You are someone now that matters. And you are important. And I put the uniform on, not just for me, but for you. And Jesus is very clearly in this chapter saying, something's changing here. I need you to see this. I need you to understand it. You are my friend. And so this morning, we honor and we remember those who changed the relationship by putting on the uniform. Strengthen that relationship by getting on ships and planes and traveling to all kinds of parts of the world and went into places where they were not welcomed and went into places for the sake of defending and honoring and protecting all of us. And for those who did not come home, this weekend we celebrate and we remember what we call today Memorial Day. There's a history to today, and I want to share with you this document, The Origins of Memorial Day. If you haven't had a chance to sit and visit with Uncle Pete, you really need. If you love history, buy the man a cup of coffee. You do drink coffee, right, Uncle Pete? I can't keep up with all that. Occasionally, but if you love history, buy him a cup of coffee, maybe decaf. I don't know, and just sit for. You need to book a couple hours because he does not share with you the unabridged version of history. He did this morning because I asked him to, but. Uncle Pete knows the history of this country, and he knows the history of the men and women. It's amazing to me. I don't say that probably often enough because we tease you a lot about it, just because, the conversations. I know a lot more about the Zulu Nation growing up and visiting Uncle Pete's because my brother and I watched a lot of videos with him. But I know they exist. But this one matters so much more to me because it's home. So listen to me as I share with you a brief history. On the 9th day of April in the year of 1865, a historical event happened in a most unhistorical place. In the sleepy little town of Appomattox, did I say that right? Appomattox. Well, I had to try. Virginia, two old soldiers met in the living room of the McLean house. Confederate General Robert E. Lee met with Union General Ulysses S. Grant to discuss surrender terms ending the American Civil War of 1861 to 1865. a war that was fought on a 3,000-mile front and lasted 4 years. Now, it is estimated that there were between 650,000 to 750,000 casualties. No true, accurate records on casualties were kept, but if you included civilian deaths from the war and from the various diseases that spread throughout the Union and the Confederate camps due to the conditions of the war, it might be closer to 1 million casualties. Now, special note, the population of the United States in the last census taken in 1860 indicated that there were 31,443,321 people. I just reached for my glasses like I always do when I'm reading. Oh my gosh. People living in the United States. That was to focus, so back up. This figure includes 3.9 million who were living in slavery. For the returning Northern soldier, grand parades, speeches, and large celebrations were held in nearly every northern city or town. For the returning Southern soldier, there was no parades, no celebrations or jubilations, just the memories of the various battlefields friends and family members lost, their country and cities in ruin, and the knowledge that they had lost the war. The Southern economy had now laid in ruins. The days of cotton being king were gone. Because of the Union blockade of Southern ports, cotton was left on the docks to rot. It has been said that Americans have never lost a war. Well, the Southern soldier was certainly an American fighting on American soil, and I would argue that America did indeed lose a war. Bitter memories of the war would linger a long time in the South. The city of Vicksburg did not celebrate the 4th of July until 1945, 81 years after the fall of the city to Ulysses S. Grant's Northern Army on July 4th of 1863. To make matters worse for the South, Reconstruction was about to begin. This failed political attempt was due to several factors: persistent white resistance to Northern policies, eventual waning of Northern support due to economic downturns, and the lack of federal enforcement of civil rights laws. Lastly, some Southern states had Union troops stationed there from 1865 until 1877. And even today, throughout the towns and farms in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, there still lingers the bitter memories and family stories of the destruction wreaked by Union General Sheridan and his troops as they laid waste to the fertile valley known as the Confederate breadbasket. But nations' wounds begin to heal, with malice towards none and with charity for all. From out of the ashes of the American Civil War, an event that would help the grieving nation heal its wounds was born. In the various cemeteries and graveyards of this nation, women from either side of the Mason-Dixon line would gather and place flowers on the graves of their lost loved ones. This event was at first unorganized, but would soon become a national endeavor. The gatherings would happen in early spring and were soon noticed by the local newspapers throughout the towns and the cities of this nation. Its notoriety began to grow. This event was first widely observed on May 30th, 1868, when Union General John A. Logan of the Grand Army of the Potomac gave a speech to commemorate the sacrifices of Northern Civil War soldiers. During his speech, he would designate May 30th as Declaration Day and urged all Americans to decorate the graves of the fallen. This speech was given in Arlington Cemetery, where approximately 20,000 Union and Confederate graves were decorated. After his speech, small flags, flowers, and other items were placed on the graves of the honored dead, a tradition that continues to this day. Declaration Day, as it would be called, began by chance or maybe by divine intervention. Most northern states would honor their Civil War dead veterans on the 30th of May each year, and in the southern states, it would be honored on different days. After World War I, not only did the name change from Declaration Day to Memorial Day, but all states now honored the May 30th observation. Now, up to this point, how many people have heard or know this part of the history of Memorial Day? How many people know it was Declaration Day? How many people? Okay, well, yeah, if you don't raise your hand, Uncle Pete, then I'm going to question the authenticity of this paper. Okay? In 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which established the last Monday of May as Memorial Day. It's just proof that sometimes we do things because it's the way it was always done, and it's not the way it was always done. He didn't write that, that's just my notes. What started out as a day to mourn only the Civil War evolved into a day to honor all American military personnel killed in all wars. Memorial Day serves as a time for reflection, remembrance, and acknowledging the sacrifices made by those who died in service to our country. Greater love has no one than this, but that he would lay down his life for his friends. In this room, the numbers bear out that the great, vast majority of us will never understand and know what that truly means. Because only a handful of people stood. And I know in the ones who are that are absent and missing this morning, again, the numbers will bear out that it's a small percentage of those who would understand what it means to make such a sacrifice. And I would argue with you this morning that just because we have some who were able to be here with us this morning and stand does not mean that they did not make the ultimate sacrifice. The sacrifice has already been made. We preached on this weeks ago in our other series when we talked about sacrifice, and I said to you, every sacrifice requires choice. Jesus' sacrifice required a choice. He chose to honor the will of the Father and said yes. And so the fact that, and it is our prayer, obviously, shouldn't need to be spoken, but I'll speak it anyway. It's our prayer that our two who are here this morning and active would never be on the other side of this. But you've already made the choice, and the choice is the sacrifice. So we honor the history of those who have already paid the ultimate price. And that's what this weekend is about. It's not just an extra day off from work, and I know I don't have to say that, but I'll say it anyway. We did a pretty good job, I think, in our family with our kids of reminding them that every opportunity we have, it's to remember, and it's to honor, and it's to pay respect. So yeah, do we have to go to work tomorrow? Some of us, no. But it's not just a day off. So we need to be reminded, I think, that, look, I'm going back to the lake today. I promise you tomorrow, if I see somebody wearing a hat, wearing a shirt, something that tells me that they are one of the reasons that I get to do what I'm doing today, I'm going out of my way. I just am. I can remember, this is not in my notes, and I'm probably going to go off a little bit here, but I can see this watch better than I could see last week, so it's a better option for me. I can remember being in Burger King when we were pastoring in California, and ordered our food and sat down, and we had shared with our kids the importance of the military and the servicemen and men and women. And I'll share maybe I plan to share a little bit more. My time in California, I became very, very connected, and I know I've shared some of these stories with our VFWs and the Gold Stars and Gold Star families and Blue Star families, and was just asked to speak at a lot of different places, including our national cemeteries. I wanted my kids to know how much it mattered. And I remember we sat down, and someone walked in, and you've seen the hats with all the stars and with all the Korean War, the Vietnam, I forget which one it was. And the gentleman walked by, and he got in line, and I want to say it was Keith. Happy birthday, Keith, if you're watching later today. Who leaned over and said, "Dad, we should buy his meal. He's a veteran." I'm like, yes, we should. It wasn't about buying the meal. It was about the fact that my boys recognized that we honor and respect. So how do we do that best? And what does that have to do with a Sunday morning in church? Because you guys know me. This is not my political place at all. But this ain't politics. I'm going to make it biblical for you. Ready? Turn with me to Romans chapter 13. We are instructed, encouraged by Paul, who writes to the church. Now, I know I'm taking one verse, and so it's important to go back and read the entire context. But the entire context is entitled Submission to the Authorities. Now, some of you just cringe because you're afraid I'm going to preach that entire message right here this morning. I won't do the whole thing. But in verse 7 of chapter 13, Paul is writing to the church. He says, "Give everyone what you owe them." He doesn't say give everybody what they got coming to them. That is a different message, and I do intend to preach that one shortly. I think it's maybe in the next series. Give everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, man, I wish we could skip that one. Yeah, we got our taxes back while we were on vacation. Well, it's biblical. I got to send the money in. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. And if honor, then honor. These are choices. You say, well, how's it a choice? He just said we're supposed to do it. Yes. But in order for us to live a life that is Christ-like, in order for us to live a life that honors God in how we interact with others, we choose. Now, let me just clarify some things this morning, because this word sacrifice sometimes, I want us to make sure that it's all-encompassing and not just kind of like narrowed it down. There is sacrifice of life. We honor that this morning. We remember those. There is sacrifice of liberties. Okay? That's like our choices. I asked one of our visiting friend this morning, I was like, so where's home? Well, here's where home is, but here's where we are now. You know, we live in San Diego, and really quick, it's like, I'm in the Marine Corps, and I was like, oh, so you don't really even get to choose where you live next. Right, no. Other Micah? Micah number 1, Micah number 2. Micah number 1 is here for as long as God allows him, which means for as long as God does not interfere with the Air Force, we get to keep. I struggle. People ask me back home for 2 weeks, so what's it like living in North Dakota? How's the church? What's it like? I'm like, someone will ask, what's the hardest thing about pastoring in North Dakota? And I'm like, Air Force. Because they come, and then they go. And I'm already in love with the Air Force families that we have here now. I was in love with the Smith family when they left. I'm getting over it. I'm not as mad about it as I was the day they left. I was frustrated when some of our other families, we got families that have moved to England and families that have moved to Louisiana. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I put on a smile and say, I support you, go. And then they leave, and I go home to her and I go, that stinks. I almost said the vacuum word, but Manny says I'm not supposed to say the vacuum word from up front. You know what vacuums do, right? Okay, we got that. Good. It's hard because I become so connected to men and women who have sacrificed their liberties, their ability to make choices like, where do I want to live? Wherever you tell me. And I know that there's, because the Smiths were supposed to go one place, but they found somebody who wanted to switch, and that worked out for them, and that's great. But you don't always get that. You sacrifice management of your own time. You sacrifice decision-making. I may have told you this story. My freshman year in college, I signed up for and enlisted, I use that word very, very loosely, in the class ROTC. And some of you just giggled already. It's like you know me. I lasted 2 weeks in that class until worn the uniform and those who wear the uniform. And if you don't know me, you're about ready to get to know me really well. I showed up, they give you the uniform, and the first whole week and a half was all classwork, studying and learning history and what certain words mean and what it means. And that was all great, and I was taking notes, and I was doing great. And we had our first field day, which we're out in this big open lawn at Slippery Rock University in Pennsylvania, and we were all to show up in uniform. Well, obviously, I didn't read the paperwork very well because I showed up in uniform, but I was wearing it casually and comfortably. And I didn't have everything folded just right, and my cuffs weren't just right. I don't even think I may have not even laced up my boots just right. I don't know. But the guy who I thought was my professor turned out to be my sergeant, whatever terminology they used in ROTC, got in my face to correct me. I don't know if you know what the proper response is to that. It is not giggling. I'm sorry. I thought he was just trying to make us, an example out of me in front of the classroom. That was not. I found out very quickly that even though I was in a classroom setting, they wanted to teach me. And I dropped out, so I don't know everything about ROTC class, and I don't mean to disrespect it at all. But I was supposed to give up some of my own decision-making processes right there on the spot. Like, you want me to fix it now? I'll fix it now. I wasn't supposed to respond with what I thought was like, this is funny. It's not funny. I mean, maybe later he would tell me what is funny. I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough. I went home and bagged it all up, went back to my dorm, bagged it all up, and on Monday morning I was like, I'm dropping the class. It was more than a class. The sacrifice that the men and women that we honor in memory and those who still wear the uniform today and retired doing such, you sacrifice livelihood. You sacrifice being home all the time. And there's always a home. In this part, I can honestly say to you, I get this part because I just went home. And in the ministry, it's not the same, but it's not completely different. I mean, I can choose. Don't panic, but I could unenlist from here any day I want. Right? With full retirement benefits. I don't have much of retirement, but Mandy always reminds me, our retirement is out of this world, honey. I'm like, yeah, but if you owe taxes, that's in this world. You sacrifice that livelihood of just being home. And this is the first time in all my life of serving and being all over the place in different parts of the world, or not the world, but the country. I didn't want to leave my mom. It's the first time. It was hard. But I know it's okay because when I hugged my mom goodbye, she whispers into my ear, I'm so proud of you and everything that you're doing, and I love that you keep serving the Lord. Just keep being faithful. Well, way to go. Be mom again. You give up hobbies and some of the things that you love to do, and there may be space for it here and there, but it's not like, oh, I want to go fishing. I'll just listen. When I get out of here today, I'm going to go home. I'm going to change clothes. I'm going to grab a few things that we forgot. We're going to put it in the truck. We're going back down. You know what's in the back of my truck right now? Fishing poles. You know what I'm doing tonight? Fishing. The worms are ready. The catfish better be ready because I'm coming, and I can do that. I don't have to answer to someone else's schedule consistently and every day. Sacrifice is not just marked by a gravestone. It's marked by a daily lifestyle that says, I will give up everything for you, for you, for you. How do we honor that? Let's just take a few minutes, because this is where I'm hoping we'll have a little give and take. How do we honor someone who has done so much for us and continues to do so much? If someone did something really special for you, let's take away the Memorial Day conversation for a moment. Let's take away the uniform conversation for just a moment. When someone does something really special for you, do you ever feel like, man, I got to do something for them? Okay? Some of you make me nervous about that because you just looked at me like, man, I don't know. I shouldn't put myself out on a limb here because I don't want to get us in trouble, but these two, the Filkins over here took care of our cat for us while we were on vacation. You're like, big deal, it's just a cat. That's how I felt. It's just a cat, he'll be fine. They came over and took care of the house, and they took care of the cat, and they took, that's a big deal. I wanted to, I don't know what you guys, I want to go out and buy you guys dinner somewhere. I want to go do something special. Oh, that's right. We got you 2 big buckets of pork rinds, didn't we? Oh, those are so good. Yeah. You know what I'm sorry. Get the ranch seasoning and dump that all. Oh, my gosh. Changes everything. Right? What do you do for people? How do you show honor? How do you show respect? What are some ways that we can show honor and respect for those who deserve it so much?
Shake their hand, look them in the eyes, and say thank you.
Let's take a poll. How many have ever done that? Man, you do realize that it absolutely matters. There is something special about the eyes just lighting up in someone's face when you just walk out and go, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you, thank you so much. What else can you do? I'm going to put it in more difficult terms for you. If we take the time to acknowledge that everything that we get to do so freely here on the grounds of this country is because of them, does it change it for you at all? Does it make you think, ooh, I got to do more? Take advantage of the freedoms you have. That's one way to honor and respect. Participate in the opportunities that you're given. That's one way. Not everyone gets to participate maybe in the same ways. I would encourage you, find out how to get connected maybe with your local VFW or some other agency or organization that does things to honor. I have some ideas brewing. Micah, number 1 in the back, I got something I want to ask you before we leave today. I told your wife to remind me, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it from up front so I don't forget. I got something brewing that I think would be really awesome, but I want some feedback from our active servicemen. Taking something to the veterans' homes. I haven't taken the time in 3 years. This is very sad and it's embarrassing to say this because the story I'm about to tell you tells you that I should. Do we have a national cemetery in Bismarck? Or close by, somewhere in North Dakota? Where's it at? Mandan, Bismarck. Okay, excellent. I would encourage you, and you know what? I'm going to put myself out here. I'll just say this. This year, we will figure out how many have ever participated in the laying of the wreaths at Christmas time on the marked graves. Okay, that is a national day of honor that is done. It's still done around, I think it's nationwide. I know it is. Again, when I served in California at the church, I had a Gold Star family, I had Blue Star families, I had vice president of the VFW attending a church. Like, I was involved because I was just invited. Got to go to the National Cemetery in San Joaquin Valley and pray over and open up the ceremonial time with all kinds of dignitaries and like little old me standing amongst all these like important people. And then we walked the cemetery and laid wreaths down, just beautified that entire place in honor of and memory of. If they do that down there, we should participate in that. There's little ways, but we should honor and we should respect and we should remember. And we should do things that says also, but not just for those who have passed, but those who, retired vets who may not be able to mow their grass, help them out. Just take your glasses off of your shirt first before you do. Give everyone what you owe them. And we owe so much to those, do we not? We do. But in closing, can I just remind you that there is one other who gave everything? And I know I shouldn't have to remind you. But when Jesus came, he gave his life. He sacrificed. He sacrificed on the cross. He sacrificed through participation in death. And then he conquered death. You're like, well, we just had Easter. We know all this. I know, but it's worth repeating. He conquered death, resurrected, and then says to us in Matthew chapter 28, this is beautiful. I think he reminds us that this is an amazing way for us to honor his sacrifice, to remember his sacrifice, to respect all that he has done for us. He says this, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. I've had conversations with folks when I am participating in something like at a national cemetery. As a pastor, there are folks who are a part of my churches that I've pastored that were veterans, and when they passed, I get to participate in that. But the families with the VFW and Blue Stars and Gold Star families, they knew me well enough that if they had someone at the VFW that passed that just They didn't go to church. They didn't have a connection, something, and they wanted someone to be there. They just called me up, and I would go to the National Cemetery, and I would participate. Now, you guys would love if you got to see me at a National Cemetery speaking, because and I don't know the proper title, but the gentleman in uniform who's in charge of the whole entire ceremony walks up and says, Reverend, this is where you're going to step up. You've got 4.5 minutes, and then you're done. Yes, sir. 4.5 minutes. I'll do it in 4. And you guys are going, never. When a man in uniform tells you got 4.5 minutes, 4 it is. I can do it. There's something honorable about that. One of the best parts of being a part of those honoring moments and those moments of respect and just looking back and reflecting and doing everything we can to remember the one who has passed is in every one of those that I stood in what you would call like the outdoor chapel area. There's the family, there's the podium, there's me, there's the honor guard off to, I think, my left, if I remember correctly, and beyond the honor guard, there is the Patriot Guard at every single one. How many know what the Patriot Guard is? Okay, I know Mandy does. The Patriot Guard is riders who show up on their motorcycles. It's the Patriot Guard riders, and they will form a line at the back. Now, and maybe this is just, I don't think it's a California thing, but in California, I know it's hard to believe, I'd show up to officiate a ceremony of remembrance and honor, and there would be people who want to come and carry signs and picket and make all kinds of noise, and the Patriot Guard stands between them and the service. And they make it very clear that if you're going to hold up a sign, we're going to introduce ourselves. It's their way of respecting and honoring the ones who gave all. And I did so many of these services, I think that after the 4th or 5th one of the guys, and I mean, these are biker dudes. I had one of them was in my church. He was my sound guy, Scooter. Now, his name was David, but if David walked up to you and looked the way he looked and said, my name's Scooter, you'd just call him Scooter. You're not going to argue with him. He was one of the PGR guys, and after like the 3rd or 4th or 5th one I did, he said, we'd like to take you to lunch, Pastor. All right. And at that lunch, they gave me a PGR coin. I don't own a motorcycle. I'm not allowed. That's as far as I'll go. And then when I left California and moved back to Pennsylvania, they gave me a plaque and they made me an honorary member. Riding with Respect since 2005. That group of guys, every opportunity they get, they go out of their way to remember and to honor and to respect. I think it's great that we do all of those things for everyone who deserves it and has earned it on a weekend like this weekend. But to tie it in, we have every opportunity to go out of our way to show honor and respect and to remember the one who gave his all, and that is share Christ everywhere you go. Be Jesus to the ones who don't know Jesus. Show love to those who need loved. In closing, I was going through some books this morning, still sorting through some of the stuff, getting ready to put the library together, and a card fell out of one of the books. It's about love. I didn't plan to share this, and to be honest, I'm going to do my best to read it because it's in Lucy's handwriting. Love is always reaching out, looking for ways to be a blessing. Ways to serve God. Love takes every opportunity to do good and is always meaningful to be a blessing to others. How do we honor and how do we respect and how do we remember the one who gave his all? Jesus said it very, very boldly. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and love one another as Christ loves you. It's my prayer that you are reminded this weekend. I say this weekend because I know tomorrow's Monday, but it's a part of the weekend for so many of us. Go out of your way to find some form or fashion to honor, to remember, and respect. But don't let that become the replacement of honoring and respecting and remembering the one. Matter of fact, honoring the one should drive us to be so much better at honoring the ones. Because when we are loving faithfully this way, we should love even more faithfully this way. It's just a natural flow from heaven through us to others. Do not let this weekend be just about free time. Let this weekend be about the freedom that has given you that time.